Hello everyone, my name is Fraser Waldron, and in this video I'm going to talk about lower back injuries. This video is for people who have disc herniation, disc bulge, etc. I'm going to share my story about this. I've got a long winding story about lower back issues. I've had 2 back surgeries, for example, and I've gone to the highest mountain and the lowest places on earth to find a solution to this problem. I was in a bad position, I would say, like on the far edge of the curve for lower back injuries. Let's say I was on the extreme end of the bell curve. I was an outlier for sure, but I've been able to drag myself back to full function, and I want to share with you some tips and tricks that I've found along the way. I'm going to break this video down into 2 parts. The first part is going to be specifically focused on like the mechanics, the mechanical issue behind the back, let's say, and things that have worked for me. Again, not a medical doctor, but just things that have worked for me. Maybe they can work for you. And then the second piece, almost more importantly, I think, is the psychological framework that you have, or the psychological or philosophical framework that you have on the back end to manage the fear of re-injury, the feeling of desperation, pain, etc. So I'm going to break it down into 2 pieces. So let's get to it. Quick background on me. When I played football in university, like American football with the helmet, the pads, and all that stuff. Worked out like crazy. I was an undersized linebacker, which means nothing if you don't play the sport, but essentially I was too small to play the position, so I had to work out lots to make up the difference, and I was always essentially fighting or battling or making contact with guys that were a lot bigger than me, so just burning out my back as quick as possible. I also had like a ski background, so I used to do like big jumps, and finding cliffs to fall off of was like for fun for me. So everything I did for my back was like everything I did in my life was perfectly designed to blow up my back. And when I actually went for my first back surgery, the surgeon like took my biography essentially, and he was like, "Oh, of course you're here. Like everything you've done in your life has led me to you. Like we've been like destined, for fate." And I said, perfect. So anyways, when I was 21, 22, I started to get sciatica down my leg, which is pain down my right leg. And it was essentially because my L5, S1, and my L4, L5, the vertebrae were narrow, essentially like the canals where the nerves splayed up down my leg. And so they went in and did a surgery to open up those canals. I actually recovered relatively quickly from this surgery and came back to relative full function. I then chose the worst career path possible by becoming a police officer, wearing all the heavy gear. I was up in northern Canada doing police work, like wrestling people for stolen candy bars and just continuing to work out pretty heavy. So I didn't learn my lesson, let's say, but I came back to almost full function because my surgeon was fantastic and they had a successful outcome. I then, after a few years of policing, got injured on the job and again had sciatica down my leg. I ended up getting a microdiscectomy at L5, S1, which is in the lowest, it's your sacrum and your lowest vertebrae, your lower back. So after that surgery, unfortunately, the surgery didn't go well. It actually made me much worse. So for like a month, I couldn't walk really more than like 30 meters. It took me 6 months to get to a point where I could walk for more than 30 minutes at a time without having to lay down. So I used to structure my day 30 minutes at a time. I could walk or sit for 30 minutes, like in a car, let's say, for 30 minutes, and then I'd have to lay down wherever I was. So I actually had a blow-up mattress, and this is actually one of my recommendations. Buy a blow-up mattress that you can lay down and sit anywhere at any time, whether you're in an airport, whether you're in a hotel. It guarantees the quality of your sleep because you've got a bed that's consistent, i.e. the blow-up mattress. I bought like as expensive as I could get, like camping mattress for people like up on the mountains, like in the Himalayas, and I use it all the time. It's the number one thing I own, actually. If I lost that, I would cry and I'd buy a new one like first day. I can't live without it. So that's my first piece of advice. My hard lesson. Anyway, so for 6 months, I was totally messed up. It took me 2 to 3 years to recover, let's say, to where I was like back to like, let's say 75% of where I should have been. And then maybe 3 to 5 years to get to full function, where now I have almost no pain at any point, mostly just psychological at this point. I don't do certain activities, like I don't do skiing and backflips, and like I'm not doing heavy squats, for example. So I'm much smarter, but I'm back to full function. And I think based on my scenario, I'm actually an extreme outlier in regards to full recovery after having 2 back surgeries in the same location, one being a microdiscectomy and another one a forainotomy, which is where they open up the bone, essentially. They carve out the bone for the nerve to splay out. So my back situation is complex, and I was able to dig myself out of the hole back to full function, and now my life looks normal to everyone else. So I'm just gonna go through roundabout stuff because people constantly come to me about this topic. They say, Fraser, you had a bad back injury, because I'm vocal about it. Tell me what you did. And I can tell you that I've been to like 30 physios, 10 chiros. I used to like travel to go meet surgeons like far, in North America, back experts, PhDs, etc. And the one thing I've discovered is that if you find someone good, they're worth $1 million, but most people, even the professionals on this topic, are not coherently or are not the best necessarily, and you can get some bad advice. So for example, let's just go down the list of things that you can do that's supported by the literature as of at least 2 years ago. So the literature supports, for example, that walking 30 minutes a day straight is a positive thing for your back. And that's because if you can imagine, and when I'm saying the back, I mean the lower back specifically, like L5, S1, I'm an expert. Anything L4, L5, I'm smart. But anything above that is not my domain of expertise. But this is true across the whole back. The vertebral bodies, the bones, have are what supply the disc. And the disc is the part that obviously breaks, right? Where you have a disc bulge or a disc herniation. The disc is where the injury occurs. So this is a problem because the vertebral bodies only provide nutrients via capillaries, like really small blood vessels. And so the only way for the disc to get nutrition is through the motion of walking, where the vertebral bodies twist, and then that creates like the flow of nutrition from the bone to the actual disc itself. So there's good literature that supports walking 30 minutes a day. The second piece is like body posture and exercises. Like I just talked, the reason I'm making this video is because I just had a buddy call me yesterday. He said he hurt his back. And he went to his physio, and the physio was like, let's do strengthening exercises, and that's all fine and dandy. But the exercises he was given caused pain. So the general rule of thumb that a person should do, and I live by this, is that if you're doing any form of exercise and it causes you pain for, let's say, over 15 to 30 minutes, anything past that, you've essentially doing an exercise that is not good for you. So what you have to do is create a customized battle plan, essentially, where you create your own. You go to many physios. Don't go to Chiro, because Chiro will hurt you. Any shearing motion will destroy you, because again, that's usually the mechanism by which you hurt your back. If your spine is twisting and you create shear on the disc, which again is like an onion ring with like jelly in the middle with a nucleus, that's going to be a big problem for you, because you probably actually initially injured it through that motion. So getting your back cracked or adjusting in that way can injure yourself. I have family in the medical field, and they say that Chiro sends them endless business on a regular basis. So if you go to a good chiropractor and you've hurt your L5, S1, they should say something to you like, we'll assess you, but we're not going to do any adjustments to that area. If they do say that, you should immediately turn around and walk out. And I've been to many chiros, I'm not against them per se, but every single one was like, let's do some adjustments on your lower back. And I'm like, no, bro, like that's literally the mechanism by which causes the injury, Okay, so physio can be good too. The physio, like my buddy just had this bad experience. The physio should create a customized plan for you. It shouldn't just be like a cookie cutter. They shouldn't just kind of like weirdly diagnose you and walk out. No one can see your back. The physios don't know what it looks like. Maybe in school they saw like a cadaver for like 5 minutes, but they don't know exactly what's occurring. And you can't make an assessment on a lower back injury unless you can see imaging. I mean, if it's super acute, like you've got radiation down both legs, your sciatica down both legs, and you're like unable to walk and you've lost bowel function, yeah, we can make a good assessment, but you're going for surgery like same day. If you just have like the run-of-the-mill disc herniation, you can't really diagnose that concretely just by looking at you or any of the tests. It's not entirely true. In certain situations you can, but in a general context, I would say like 90% of the time, you must go for imaging. And so you got to go for an MRI. Until the MRI shows you exactly what you've got, you don't know where you are. Another piece, and sorry, this is just a fire hose of information, but I think it's useful. Also, when you go for your MRI, the radiologist will read it and you'll get a report. The radiologist hasn't seen inside of a body in a long time, usually. And the people that read the reports may not be experts on back-related stuff. So you want to go to a back surgeon, the person who actually opens people up and sees what the spine actually looks like, to interpret the results. Because if you do the MRI, you'll most likely be laying down, and maybe it doesn't show exactly, that might be a position that doesn't lend itself to expressing what is actually wrong with you. There are some MRIs that you can go to, for example, and I did one where it's actually you're sitting. Those are rare and hard to find, but that's sometimes a better version, because in that context, for me, where my disc was herniated, it actually showed how the disc had opened up, because I had an esoteric sort of tear. It didn't just kind of open up like an onion. It actually flared open. There's a little piece that was flopping around. And that was only expressed in the sitting MRI, because when I was laying down, that was my only comfortable position. And so in that situation, the disc was kind of like homogeneous. It looked relatively okay. Still a herniation, but didn't show exactly the mechanism of injury. So this is why you want, the radiologist will read it, but do not believe them for a second. Take that report, send it to the surgeon. I had this many times where the surgeon would read and completely indicate, would essentially say, that report is completely wrong. Here's what it actually is. And even they don't know until they're actually inside of you. It's a bit exploratory. So they go, hey, your symptoms qualify for surgery. Maybe you're just a bad position like me. All the pathways, the low impact, like physio, chiro, all these different things you've tried haven't worked, the conservative therapies, let's say. Now it's time to do the surgery. Until the surgeon opens you up, what they see isn't going to match the imaging necessarily, because it's going to be different positions. It's real life versus the image. So this is one of the problems with the back injury. So you have to kind of be a detective and gather all this information, get a bunch of experts to all look at the information, and then cluster that, do like a metadata analysis essentially, and go, what does everyone say? What's the balance of that? And this is going to determine what your injury is. And then you can customize a response plan to that. So for example, for me, I could do planks, like forward planks, side planks. Some people couldn't do that with their specific injury pattern, whatever that might be. So then you essentially create a customized workout plan, physio plan that, you can physio can help you, mobility plan, etc. And then you just customize it as you start to recover. A big problem with the back injury, specifically discs, is that the discs have no nerve endings, so your disc could be destroyed right now and you might feel nothing. It's only when the disc herniates or bulges and hits the nerve or hits other tissue that you actually feel the sensation. So it's a really frustrating injury, and this was one of the most key things that I wish someone had told me initially, because when I first hurt my back, when I had my first back surgery, I got better quickly. But on my second one, I was like in the weeds, right? Like it was just the worst, because I perceived myself as a able-bodied person and I was disabled, like badly disabled. And in my mind, I was like, well, it's going to be like a 3-month like time horizon to heal. I just had that number, 3 months. But that's not necessarily true. If you have a disc bulge where the disc hasn't actually opened up, if you've determined that, yeah, you can have a recovery rate that's in the months. But if you actually have a disc herniation, because the disc is a unique structure in the body, like there's nothing really else quite like it, and it has bad blood flow, bad nutrition, bad nutrition through the vertebral bodies, the vertebrae, the actual bones itself. You'll get terrible blood flow through that, and it takes forever for those things to heal. So I had a surgeon tell me, and this was the most useful piece of information, and I think it's the most useful part of this video, that it was a minimum 2-year heal window, adaptation window for the disc itself. So you can have no symptoms if you just laid there, didn't move, and you're in a safe position, let's say. You could have a safe position for like a year and a half. Your disc has not healed. The injury still exists. It takes 2 years on average. That's the minimum, but more like 3. And so if you re-injure the disc, it's not like you lose a month and then gain a month back. It's not going to yo-yo like that. It's going to be like, oh, you've reset the 2-year window for adaptation. The adaptation will occur, and I'm a good example of this. For 2 years, I suffered mightily. The first few months, it stabilized. I was doing all these different therapies and stuff. I did every injection you could possibly imagine. I went to to the top of the mountain to talk to the monk. I went to like the jungle to talk to the witch lady with the special, I did everything. I read every piece of literature I could get my hands on this. At about the 2-year mark, I got 50% better. So it was I don't remember the month, but it's like June, I was fucked up. July, 50% better. And I was like, my God, I can walk, I can jog on the field, And then at about the 3-year mark, I was about almost 100% better, like 99%. I had like phantom pain because the nerve was so damaged that like if I think about it, I get pain. Like I get sciatica right now, for example, just thinking about it. But I'll do that in the second episode. That's a different thing. But the actual mechanical situation had fixed, and there's good data that supports that, but it just seems like no one knows that. So if you have a herniation, you got to think long term. Your life has changed, you're in a different position. It's not something that just randomly heals. Like if you cut your arm, the body works on that right away, good blood flow, you do a little physio, you get some stitches, put some cream on it, you're good to go, peace. With the back injuries, this is not the case. The herniation, especially if they're esoteric herniations or whatever the case, you're going to be in a world of hurt for a decent period of time. But it's useful to know that, because if you don't know that, after like 6 months, you're like, what is happening? And that's what happened to me. I was like, I'm never getting better. Sometimes I'm a little better for a week. I pick up a sock off the ground, bam, I'm back to square one. Like what's happening here, right? It is super unmotivating and depressing because I just didn't have the right mindset. Human beings can handle everything if you have at least a structure around it. And that 2-year window is a good way to reframe it. Also, when you're healing, again, you don't know what is causing you problems necessarily. So at the beginning, you might be like, oh, every time I do a squat, I get pain, or every time I sit in a certain position, I get pain. Cool, that's good feedback. But as the inflammation in the joint reduces, you'll find yourself in situations where like, I don't feel like I'm hurting myself. And then all of a sudden you've re-injured yourself to an extent. So for me, for example, is any shearing motion. So I would feel pretty good for like a month or two. And then I would like grab like one time I grabbed a cart, like it was like someone was pushing up a cart with food in it, like a food cart kind of thing. Like a little small one is for work. And I grabbed it because they were having a hard time pushing up this hill, and I was an idiot because I was like, I'm the hero. And I grabbed it and I just kind of I pushed it, but I twisted. And that position, it didn't hurt necessarily to do the action, but then after about 5 minutes, I was like, I'm cooked. And so why didn't I feel it immediately? It's because and that's what actually I had to get the second surgery, because I essentially blew out the disc even more. The purpose why I'm telling you that is because the disc itself, you don't feel anything. So when I did that motion, the disc like degraded even more. Like I actively injured myself. It's like spraining your ankle in the motion. But I didn't feel it for like a couple minutes because like the inflammation, the nucleus leaking out or whatever was going on internally didn't touch the nerve immediately. So the inflammation in the joint hadn't arrived yet. And it was only a few minutes later where I was like, oh, I've badly injured myself. And like 2 days later, I'm getting surgery. So the point is that you might have the initial sort of bounce in symptoms like recovery, but you're not fixed. You need to, and you won't be able to determine what exercises are hurting you or not, which can be a bit of a mind game. So walking, super good. Static exercises like planks, where you're not like when you're in neutral spine, you're not overly flexing extension or like you're in within that neutral band of activity, and you got to slowly work that in. You got to start from zero and slowly kind of build out your resume or your toolkit of exercises that are good for you. So for example, like when I was swimming was a godsend for me. I would swim overhand, but I couldn't do all the swimming motions because sometimes my back would get too much twist into it. So I had to like slowly build up over like months and months and months, if not years, my swimming portfolio, okay? So 30 minutes worked really well for me. Swimming in the pool was nice. I could still lift weights in certain contexts. So I could do like calf raises. I could do like, I could do pull-ups, for example, in certain situations. But again, I started super slow, super basic, and you can get a physio or you can go online, you can find lots of programs. The key bit is that if the exercise causes you no pain, then you're good. If the exercise causes you pain, then just take it out for a long period of time and only bring that back in months and months and months later. Like really overextend it, because if you re-injure yourself, you reset the clock. And just take it from me, when you reset that clock, it is extremely depressing because you'll say, oh, I'm 6 months in, boom, I re-injure. Now it's a 2-year window. Again, you're starting from scratch. So this is something to consider. But the adaptation does occur. It is possible to have adaptations. There's great stories about that. There's one story about like a Navy SEAL guy or something like that who got a bullet into his spine. And after like 4 or 5 years, the bullet moved it was in the disc. It was like in the disc and in the vertebrae, like kind of jammed in there. And over like 4 or 5 years, the bullet migrated out of his back to his stomach, and then the dude cut it out with a knife, like a barbarian at like a barbecue. It's like a famous story. And so the point of that is that the bone will adapt, the discs will adapt, so you're good. Just, you got to be on point. The second point, or let's say another point, is eating habits. If you're overweight, you just compound the issue. There's good literature on this. Like if your head has like a forward lean, like for every degree it's forward is like X amount of pounds or kilograms into your lower back, which screw you. So when I got injured, I was big. I was 100 kilos. I was working out, so I was like muscly, but I was like heavy, just upper body. I was heavy because I had muscle. You know, the girls liked it, but for the boys, you know, but that was not to my detriment. So when I was injured, I essentially like lost a bunch of muscle mass, but because I was eating a lot, I just switched from 100 kilos muscle to like 100 kilos like fat. So I was getting larger, and I could tell, like just anecdotally, that as my weight increased, my chances of improving my situation decreased. So I went hardcore. If I can do it, you can do it too. I ate no processed sugar. I ate the healthiest food you could eat. I had no chocolate bars, no pop, no soda, no like cake in the fridge. I ate nothing but the healthiest food possible, because I thought if I'm going to give myself a fucking chance to be better, I'm going to do it. So you got to be really intense about that. So I went from like 100 kilos, like not in shape, again, like swimming a little bit, like walking 30 minutes a day kind of thing, to going back down to 84 kilos or 82 or like 180 pounds, let's say 175, which is my high school weight, with no exercise for 6 months, minus like the most minor activity that I could do. And that was a fucking game changer, because if I kept my weight down, there wasn't extra pressure on the disc. If I can do it, you can do it, right? And I had my little fancy blow up mattress so whenever I could lay down, I could just use that. I had a good bed, for example. I bought the best bed possible, and I had my sort of routine, and I just hit that, and I went from an extreme outlier in the negative to an extreme outlier on the positive, because not many people have 2 back surgeries in the same joint complex and are moving around like me, you know? So anecdotally, that was super useful. Another thing that was a game changer for me was I did cold plunges, and there's not really like a lot of literature on this, but I'll just give you anecdotal stuff because I think it's useful. Having a cold shower didn't do anything. Cold pack on the back, nothing. Anti-inflammatories, unless it was like hardcore, like really heavy drugs, weren't that effective for me. But if I did cold plunges, so like I used to go to a civic center, and I'd walk into the civic center, and they had a hot tub and a cold tub, and I'd do 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, so the back and forth. And I'm thinking, again, this is anecdotal, but I think it's useful. Many people who have recommended this have the same result, so take it for whatever it is. They'd hop in the cold tub, and then they'd have vasoconstriction, and then they'd hop into the hot tub, and they'd have vasodilation. And what I think what was happening was that if there's inflammation in the joint, it kind of forces like the liquids to move around, things to kind of push around a little bit. And because your spine is so deep, I think the key piece is that there's actually water up to my neck. So if I did a cold shower, I didn't have it. If I laid in a bathtub, like horizontally, I couldn't get the same results. But a cold plunge, where you actually went vertically, like I'm standing in a cold plunge, like a deep bathtub, like a pool, that gave me 3 to 5 hours of symptom relief. The symptoms would come back because, again, it doesn't fix the injury, but that actually gave me substantial relief. And I did that for years at a civic pool, like a public pool, and all the people, it's all old dudes, all like construction guys, and they would say stuff like, all Eastern Europeans, they would say stuff like, I can't go to work if the cold tub is like not functional. We had one dude who's a ballet guy, and he was like, he hurt his knee, and he's like, if I don't get the cold plunge, like I literally can't do my job. Like it's impossible for me to ballet or whatever. And again, everyone agreed, because I was like a little researcher, everyone agreed that it was not the cold temperature, it was the plunging part. It was getting underneath the water. Now I tried to look up literature on that, but it just like doesn't really seem to exist. But anecdotally, this is like the show. I think that one's super good. So that's something that really worked for me as well. And then the last one, I'll maybe finish off on this, is posture. So when I injured myself, my head was really forward. I kind of walked around like this, I'm like the texting, like high school kid, like that perfect terrible body posture. So and I'll put a link to this book. There's a book called 5 Habits for a Healthy Back. I think that's the name. And I can't remember the author's name right now. It's a lovely lady who is an anthropologist, and she went around and she saw that people in like indigenous communities around the world, like in Papua New Guinea, etc., none of them sat. And so when you sit, her hypothesis was that your hips, like when you're a little kid, your hips kind of fuse in a way that you get like an S spine essentially. So everyone's backs in the West are problematic. And that the people who are indigenous, like they never sit. They're either doing like the squat, like they kind of like squat sit, or they're just like standing. Like they won't sit on like a log, or they won't sit on a chair because it's just like naturally they don't want to. And their spines are like a J spine, so it does have a bit of a curve, but it's relatively straight with the kind of J at the end. And whether that's the hypothesis is valid or not, the book she wrote is fantastic, and I'll again put the link in my comments or in the description. I think it's five steps for a healthy back, or 10 steps for a healthy back. It's a terrible name of a book, but you'll get the drift. And essentially, this was my key piece, because in that, and there's tons of YouTube content on her as well. Again, I'll link everything in my. You can just watch it all for free. But the book is nice because it's got pictures, and I'm simple, and pictures are good for me. But it was like how to sit in a car. Oh, and she had a bad back injury too. That's a key point. So she had essentially the same injury as me, and then has recovered fully, like myself. And she claims it's all because of posture. And I agree with that, because if your posture is shit, then what that happens is that the injury, like let's say, you're always leaning to your right or leaning to your left, and that imbalance has caused your injury. Unless you fix that root cause, you'll recover. But then as soon as you go back to your regular lifestyle, and if you have that imbalance, you're cooked, right? So you'll be in the same bad scenario. So her perspective was that you need to essentially redo how you walk, redo how you sit, redo how you stand, redo how you lay in the bed. So I implemented all of that, and I found direct relief immediately, and I think that was a contributor to my long-term gain. So when I'm in the car, like the back of my head is against the seat. When I'm sitting in the chair, the way I kind of like put myself into the chair is very specific, and it's all from this book, and I'll just refer to it. When I lay down on the bed, I lay down my spine like in this really like an accordion or some shit, or just like lay that down one vertebrae at a time, and I get that sort of passive extension, etc. So that's a super good book, and I've leveraged that. And one, I just look better in the mirror. Like when I look at myself now, I'm like, wow, Fraser's standing up straight. And when I'm at like the grocery store, or I'm in a restaurant, I just look around at all the people who are like in the bad posture, and I'm like, you're cooked. And I have one friend in particular who was a bit more heavy set and had bad posture and had a bad back injury. And every time I see this guy, I'm always like, bro, you good? He's still heavy set. He's still injured. Terrible pain down his legs all the time. He's got L5-S1 injuries, the same thing as me. And his just posture is terrible. He's not well. He hasn't built himself well, and you can change that. It's 100% demonstrably changeable. I used to do like the head forward kind of thing, and now I don't, because I sit up properly. That I changed that in like a month, like just hardcore. Just I'm going to fix that, right? And there's lots of ways to do it. You don't need to listen to me on how to do that. Just read the book, watch the YouTube videos, implement. Boom, you're in a better situation. Things that did not work for me was like PRP therapy, stem cells, any sort of pretty much I tried everything. I actually went to the researchers on stem cells at the University of British Columbia before the paper was published. I was like, does it work? This is before the data came out, and he was like, no. And I was like, shit. So I tried everything. Steroids, injections, I tried all of those. Again, some relief from that, but the disc takes 2 years. So the key part here, I'll just leave it here because I've done a lot. Maybe I'll make another video if I think of other stuff. But fundamentally, the discs takes 2 years to heal. So if you have a herniation, you got to think of your life as going to be different for that 2-year window, and that's the minimum, not the maximum. As soon as I had that information, I was like, depressed by that, but then I was relieved, because when I had the seesaw of symptoms and experience, at least I had in my mind, hey, it's 2 years out, you got to grind to that 2-year mark, and then we'll see where we're at. And then that gives you a goal that's not arbitrary. So if you're like, in 1 month I'm going to be better, at least in my experience, and with all the people I've helped with this, because people like to call me and say, hey, my back's injured. If you have a disc bulge, yeah, it's very possible. If you just tweaked a muscle in your back and it's not disc related, cool. But the discs are special material. Last thing I mentioned too, I still don't do certain exercises. So my surgeon, who was like an ex-Olympian, like athlete, he gets it, He showed me, he's like, the spine, evolutionarily speaking, if you believe that, is horizontal, and it was like a meat hanging rack. So all the other mammals, like the spine is like, it hangs all the organs, like the spine is horizontal, but for humans, we're bipedal. So he's like, the way the spine is designed is not meant to like weight load vertically necessarily. Like, we've adapted for that, but it's not ideal. So he was like, if you're at the gym and you're doing heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, like anything where you're stacking weight vertically, he's like, you're burning out the discs, and the mechanism is just you've got shear pressure, right? Like, as if you're doing a squat and your technique's even a little bit off, like the disc is getting pressured vertically, and then if you like tap the squat rack a little bit, like you're getting that shear across, right? So he's like, unless you're training for a very specific purpose, like you want to be a strong man, you want to play American football, like the exercises you have to do include the squats, etc. But he's like, it comes at a massive cost, and the cost is essentially your back health. And like I said, it takes 2 years for an adaptation to occur in the disc as a minimum. So just be careful, whatever exercise you are doing, make sure it's not impacting your back. So if you see me now, like if I'm working out my legs are developed, let's say, I'm on the bike, I'm doing like lunges with no weight. I've modified it because I'm just training for longevity now. I'm not training for some specific goal. And I see a lot of people, especially in Bali, where it's like fitness culture, yeah. And I see dudes doing like squats for super heavy. And I'm like, bro, you're 40. Like what are you training for? Like you can get analogous results without putting tons of pressure on your lower back, because again, you don't have nerve endings in your spine, in your discs. So you could be destroying the disc, but not know it, because you won't feel it until it finally gives out, and the other pieces of your physiology around the disc are affected. So it'd be kind of like you sprain your ankle, but you can't feel it until like 3 days later, you know what I'm saying? Or like you sprain your ankle and you're like, that's fine, I'm gonna keep playing basketball. And then you really blow out your ankle, and now you need surgery because you've broken a bone or you've torn a tendon, etc. If you think of it like that, it makes sense. So just treat your spine super nice, and then it'll treat you nicely too. So that's on a preventative point. But that's it. I'll do a second video on the psychology of this, because I think that's almost more important. I probably missed a bunch of stuff, so I'll make another video if I missed anything. Let me know in the comments if this is useful, and if there's anything you want me to add or clarify, I'd be happy to follow up. So that's it. Good luck, and if your back is injured, it's not the end of the world. It is recoverable. If I can do it, surely you can do it as well. So I hope this has been useful. Catch you on the next video.